Kenny Colopy here with Next Play and George Stahl as well, and we're going to continue our video features here. Again, focusing on leadership and athletics and mental toughness. And today, I can't really think of a better guy for this as far as leadership and toughness goes. We're here with Tim Sullivan, who's the head coach at Cooper High School varsity boys basketball team. Thanks, Tim.
Appreciate you guys coming out.
Yeah, for sure. When I walked in, I was looking through the trophy case. And 08, 09 first season. Talk about what that was like as far as getting the, you're in your 11th year now. What was it like getting that started? Why'd you take the job? How did you start off? You got these tough teams. How do you start with that, establishing that culture?
I think the biggest thing about taking the job, and I always kind of joke, is I don't think many people wanted it. It's obviously not hard to. Or it's not very easy to start a program, and it takes a special type of person, and not saying I'm a special type of person at all, but it takes a lot, and it takes a lot of resiliency, and somebody young and dumb enough to kind of lead it. And I had bounced around and taken some jobs, and wasn't afraid as an assistant coach to take a job and move and go do things. And I was fortunate. I was single, didn't have a family yet, and it made it easy for me to do that. And obviously I wanted my own job and wanted to lead a program. I felt like I was ready to lead my own program. And when this school opened up, I was like, shoot, let's try to get it. And I was fortunate. They gave me a chance, and took a chance on me, a guy that I had 1 year of coaching experience as a head coach down at St. Patrick High School in Maysville, and and I think we won 7. I think we went 7-19 there. So it wasn't like I had a bunch of success. But the administration took a shot at me and took a chance on me, and I think they saw something that this guy's coming in here and he's got the right mindset. And the first thing I did was when I did get the job is I said, man, I got to find I got to have an energy guy with me, but I got to find a guy that has that experience, and a guy that's been through it and been through different programs and been through girls programs, boys programs. And so the first thing I did was I hired Rick Tyler. A guy that has been around a long time. He's actually a 9th region official again, and he was great. He worked with me for 2 years, and then I had our energy guy Brett Blevins, who's a young guy that was up and coming, and he wanted to get into it, and he was fired up and had a passion, and we immediately hit it off. We all kind of knew each other, but we started hitting it off, and it was a great relationship, and we immediately started. I had a vision, and we took that vision, and I said, let's, if we do things the right way, we pour our hearts into it, we pour our passion into it, great things will come. And when you go into it with a vision and a goal, you're thinking, I can do this. You're young and you got pride, and you got an ego, and you think you can do it on your, you can do it. I look back now, it wasn't exactly as easy as I thought it was going to be. Now, I knew it was going to be a lot of work, but it was tough. And that first year, I hold that first group in such high regard, because we had basically we had one senior on the roster. The rest were a junior, and then a bunch of sophomore and a bunch of freshmen. And we competed at the highest, at the varsity level that first year. And we went 2-27. And one of our first win didn't come till the end of December, and then our second win didn't come until the first round of the district tournament. We hit a shot at the buzzer, and we partied and celebrated that like it was the greatest thing. But that group, they didn't have the experience. We didn't have any varsity experience, and those guys were so tough and so resilient, and they sold themselves and they bought into it. And we were asking them to run through walls and try to do things that they probably couldn't do, and they bought into it. But I think our vision of, let's build this thing on blue collar, let's be tough, hard-nosed guys that aren't afraid to do the dirty work. And that's kind of my personality, and that's just the way that I grew up and the way that I was taught by my parents, and then went on and played. And it was just, let's do this thing the right way. Let's treat people the right way. Let's be very transparent. We don't fabricate anything. And I think that was the biggest thing about what we did those first couple of years was that we were very transparent, and guys knew that we trusted them, and we were there, and we had their backs, and they weren't afraid to run through a wall for us. Now, if they couldn't run through the wall, they were going to find a way around it. And those first couple of years were so tough, because obviously you want, especially young kids, they got to see success. and the success was very scarce those first couple of years, and it was tough, and there was times where I would question myself and think, am I doing this the right way? And I had a great staff with us, and those guys were behind me, and they had my back, and it just kept building and building, and each year we saw a little bit more success and a little bit more success. And, obviously players. One thing we said is if we do this thing the right way, we treat people the right way, we communicate with parents, we communicate with our administration, the kids will come. The people will be here, and the support will happen in your program. And that was the mindset that we had to have. And then obviously you have to have that resiliency and not giving up and just saying, well, this isn't for me. And that was when it all started, those first couple years. We started kind of knocking on the door, and I think it was, that fourth or fifth year we finally got in we won a district title. The team, and it was funny, we win the district title that year, and then, here, congratulations, you won a district title. We draw Dixie, who got upset, and, they were reigning region champs. Coming back, and it just so happened that now my freshman coach is Kenny Chevalier, and he was coaching that group. So something we always joke about, but just kept at it, that resiliency and not accepting the fact that we were young and we were inexperienced, and not accepting the fact that teams were better than us. And that's just the mindset and the expectation that we set. And I learned from some really good coaches that I played for and that I worked for. I've learned things, what to do, how to do things, not to do things. And that expectation and never lowering that expectation was, I think, the biggest thing that got us over the hump.
So, just real quick on while you're still talking about kind of your first teams, you can say all those right things. Something that I noticed from your teams, I don't know why this sticks in my head, but I was an assistant, I think, at Brossard. We came out here, we played you. After the game, your team cleaned up the bench. You left it better than you found it. Those small details, what are some other things standards that you held them to, whether it be at practice, during games, and huddles, that sort of thing? What are those small things?
That was something that, the first couple years, that was something that, Coach Tyler communicated, and we started doing that. And it was just something that after the first year, our kids they expected it, and then the other guys passed it down and they kept going. Some other things that we do in the school, we talk about this every day. You're a leader. You've got more to lose. People look at you a different way because you are, not that you're any better. It's a privilege to play basketball. It's not your right. And being in the program, you're going to act a certain way off the court. And when you're in the building, you got to be a leader. If you see something going on in the hallway, you make sure that you're helping and doing the right thing, not putting yourself in a situation. And in the classroom, making sure you're showing eye contact and talking to your teachers and communicating with your teachers. Do we do it all the time? No. They're kids and they learn, but that expectation. And what happened was that those and again, it goes back to those first couple years. Those guys bought into that, and they continued to pass it down, and it's an expectation now. And we don't talk about really to clean up the bench, but our guys just go and do it. And it's a proud moment every time I see that. And we don't take that for granted, and we try not to talk about it much, just because it's something that's the expectation, and you do it. And little things like that. And it's just being leaders off the floor, and when you go to a game, make sure that you take your hat off when you go in the building. Make sure, you don't have a hood up when you go in the building. If you guys are going out to these other high school games and people talk to you, make sure that you look them in the eye and make sure that you carry conversations on and, say thank you and just being a good dude off the court. And it's really carried, and that's a real proud thing for not only me, but just our program and our staff, is the way that our guys handle themselves off the floor.
And that leads to winning too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ultimately you do the small things, and they're more detailed practice in games and huddles and that sort of thing. So that's great. So that always stuck out to me.
Cool.
The small things, yeah.
One of my questions is, and you hit on a little bit of when you first started coaching, you went through a lot of ups and downs your first year, and a lot of more downs on the
Absolutely.
Side. Can you say one thing, especially that you've learned from? You can even actually go from your first year coaching from St. Patrick's or from here. What have you learned between that first year coaching here, let's say, and then today? Is there one thing that you've taken and you've learned more than anything else from then until now?
It's the patience. It's the patience of understanding that And that's a great question, because I actually just reflected on that today with Coach Holthouse. We were standing in practice, and there were, a couple of times in practice today, and we're kind of, with this group, we're trying to work on being resilient, and there's that fine line between those first couple years where I was almost insane about how I was trying to push and the things I was doing. And I've learned to, it's okay to be that way and be all wound up and push and push and push, but you've also got to be able to smile and laugh with the guys in practice and be able to, for them to be able to see that you're still human. Because, today in practice, that's exactly what happened. We were having just a grind practice where guys were trying to, it was like they were butting the system, and I was pushing, and it was, there's an expectation, and it's okay that, we got through it, but then I also started laughing, and I made we try to crack some jokes to try to keep the guys lighthearted. And I think that's been the biggest thing, is that patience and understanding that it's not just going to happen, and it's that everyday process. It's believing in that process, it's enjoying in that process, and understanding that it doesn't just happen. In this microwave society where these kids, they want that results now, and us, we're adults, we're the same way. Like we want that result, we want to see it happening. We know we're getting ready to play in a day or two, so we got to get it done now. And that patience, and it just comes from experience. It comes, I look back at when I was I'm still working as hard as if not harder, but I'm working a lot smarter because I got a little more patience, and I'm able to look at it and go, he'll get it eventually. He'll get it eventually. We got to keep that expectation, but he'll get it eventually, or we'll get it eventually.
Right. I know you also talked about at the beginning too about you wanted to communicate well with parents. Communication-wise, is there, I think it's obviously very important to be able to connect to your players. Is there anything specific that you do on the court, off the court, to make sure you're getting to each one of your players who need it more than others? Is there any certain philosophy you have with that, or that's grown, or that's something that you've done for a while? Or
I pride myself on relationships, and we as a staff, we pride ourselves on relationships, and because when it boils down to it, that's what it's about. It's about having relationships and building relationships, and the ability to communicate with your parents. It's all about transparency, and I think the biggest thing and what helps us, and we've been very blessed here at Cooper in our careers. Our parents are so supportive. Not all parents are in the moment, in the heat of the moment, they want their kid to play 32 minutes and score 30 points. It just doesn't happen. But I think being transparent with the kids and building that relationship with them, when they go home, it's not so much I should be doing this, it's I didn't do this, I need to do it better. Mm-hmm. Instead of when mom or dad are like, why aren't you playing? It's not, well, I should be playing. It's, I didn't get this done today. And that doesn't happen all the time. I know that. I'm not naive. But building that relationship, and the ways that we do that is, and it's kind of funny because my classes here at school are like, Coach, you follow all your guys on Twitter. You follow all your guys on social media. And I say, yeah. And they're like, do you do that to follow them just to keep an eye on them? I'm like, no. In today's world, if a coach, if you're not connecting with your kids in social media, because let's face it, they'll tell you more in a text message than they will sitting there face to face with you. It's just, that's just the way it is. It's the way of the world. Do I like it? No. I would rather be able to have that face to face contact and talk, but they'll open up to you more and more over text message, and you can learn so much about your kids and what they're doing on Twitter. And it's not, I see something on Twitter, hey, clean your Twitter up. It's, man, I see where that kid's at. I see where his mind's at. I understand he's in this moment. He's thinking about these things outside of basketball, and it helps me relate to him. And then, whether it's something with a girlfriend on Twitter or whatever, I can all of a sudden in practice, oh, I saw you where you were talking about so-and-so. And it's just that little interaction, I think, that helps that young man understand, you know what, Coach is just not here trying to win games. He's here trying to help me, and he's trying to build a relationship with me. And those long-lasting relationships, I think that goes with being transparent with the parents, and the communication, being able to understand that. Is it always pretty? No. We've obviously, there's been parents that, haven't been happy with what we do, and that's the nature of the beast and the job. But that building that relationship is huge in my opinion, and what it's done is it's built those lifelong relationships with the guys that we still coach. I'm one of our guys that played on our first year team. He's getting ready to get married. Another guy, just had his second child, and it's so fun to watch and see that, and still be able to follow it now. Social media helps because you see it on Facebook, you see it here, but it's great. It's great to see that, and those relationships have led to our alumni. Our alumni at our scrimmage or our first game, we've got 10, 12 guys sitting up behind the bench, and we don't ask them to do that. They just come in, and that's part of what they want to do, and I'm grateful for that. I can't tell you how happy I am when I see those guys there, because it lets us know that the wins and losses take care of themselves, but those relationships, they're going to be there. When I took this job, I didn't take this job for my record. I knew that my record was going to suffer. I knew that, and my wife's a coach, and she's a lot more successful than I am, and she's got a lot more wins and a lot more regions, and I'm always joking that I'm chasing her, but we've always had the mindset of do things the right way, build relationships, build that strength, and the wins will take care of itself. And we've won some games, and we've lost a lot of games. I hate losing. I don't like that. But the wins take care of themselves when your kids believe. And they believe in us. They believe in what we're doing. Because they know that we're there for them, and we're fighting for them.
So you hit some buzzwords there, and we've talked a little bit about core values. We've talked about transparency, communication process, relationship building. What are your core values? What have you done to establish those here? What standards do you have to support those? And you can talk about your
Definitely.
for that.
Definitely. We've always had the mindset of a family. When I played for John Riley at Brush University, and Chris Viscuso, who was an assistant there, and we still talk just about, we talk weekly, and it was always together. We broke our huddles together. It was always that bond and that brotherhood, that family, and that's something that I hold dear. And my family, personally, they're my world. Whether it's my immediately family, my cousins, we do it big when it comes to our family. Like, it's a big deal. And when I look at our core values, something that I picked up from John Brannon when he was at Northern, I would go over, and again, when I was, as a coach, you're trying to steal, you're always trying to borrow, and I think I saw in Coach Brannon's, in his thing, nothing we ever use is original. Everything, it's always, we're getting something from somebody. We just tweak it and we figure out a way. So our core values in our program are family, trust, and toughness, and those things are on our wall. And family, when we talk about family, if a guy hits the ground, we better have everybody helping him up. That's kind of the standard. Now that goes along with, you see a guy struggling, put your arm around him. You see a guy pouting, you get him in check. You hold each other accountable. That's what families do. The families fight. Families are dysfunctional. It happens. But at the end of the day, we love one another. We're taking care of one another, and we're playing for one another. And that's what's special. And that's what family to us is pulling for one another. When you see each other in the hallway, you're not walking by. Like, it drives me crazy if two of our guys walk by in the hallway and they don't even look at each other. Like, how do you do that? Like, you're going to war every day together. How do you not? So, like, when you see a guy in the hall, just an acknowledgement. It doesn't have to be so much, but just acknowledging each other. Trust. Every time, and this was one I picked up from Coach Brannon. When you talk to somebody, whether it's a coach to coach, player to coach, coach to player, you look them in the eye. And that just shows that you're trusting that person, and that that you're engaged in what they're talking about, and understanding why they're saying what they're saying, and having that trust. And then that goes along the way. I've got to be able to trust in the defensive possession that you're going to guard the ball. You got to trust that I'm in the gap helping if you get beat. Offensively, I got to trust that because I get in the paint and I kick to you, you're going to knock it down. In the hallway, if somebody's trying to get at me, I got to trust that you're going to walk up and get me away from it. My girlfriend broke up with me today. I got to trust that my guys got my back, and I'm going to go hang out with my guys. Just that every single day, having that trust in each other. And then the last one's toughness. And our standard is we don't go to our knees. If in practice, and you start seeing it, guys will go to their knees. A guy will reach over, he'll grab his jersey and stand him up. We don't go to our knees, and that's something that goes a long way, because you're in a game and you're watching body language, and guys get tired, and all of a sudden their shoulders go down, their hands go to their knees. And that is, to us, in our program, if we see a team do that, that to us tells us, let's get them. We've got them where we want them. Let's get them. Let's be tougher than they are. And that toughness, we actually just talked about it today. There's so many ways that you can be tough, and look, we don't have fighters. We don't have guys that, that come from the streets that are going to knock a guy out. We're talking toughness. We're talking about being able to rebound from an ACL injury and getting back on the court in 8 months. We're being able, we're guys that, because someone loses a family member, everyone's there for them, and we help them get through that. And that toughness you can learn it. Like right now, I don't think that we're very tough. This team that I have, we're learning how to be tough. And being tough is so many different ways you can talk about it. And so many people hear tough, they think, well, we're going to fight somebody. We ain't fighting anybody. Toughness means we're going to sit down, we're going to guard you when we need to guard you. When the shot ain't going, we got to still guard people. Now, we got to find a way. We got to be tough enough on the offensive end to be able to find a way. Okay, let's screen. Let's get somebody open. Let's get to the foul line. Let's find an easy bucket. That's toughness. Being able to, in the state tournament in the first round, when you know the other team's going to play a triangle and two, guy comes in off the bench, Tyler Aller comes in off the bench, bangs a three for us. That's toughness. Being able to, because you don't get the roles every day and you're not that main guy, now all of a sudden you've grinded every single day in practice. You're tough enough to come in a game in a big moment and bang a shot for us. Or, a guy like Dante Hendricks, he breaks his wrist in a game in the district finals, his junior year. Comes down, breaks his wrist, comes up to me. We didn't know it was broke at the time. He's like, Coach, I'll get a stop. He goes in the game, toughness, gets a rebound one-handed. And that's when we were like, okay, we got to get him off the floor. It's not right. So that's the toughness. But what it does is that those core values are what get you through when you get out of here. Being able to deal with a death in your family and understanding that that's part of life. Being able to trust people. We see so many kids that come through our program, and it's a lot of programs that, whether it's a divorce or a death that their single family home, they struggle to trust sometimes. And when they come in, you can kind of see them like, I don't know if I can trust guys. And it's that everyday caring and giving the love and being a part of something, and you slowly start to see them kind of break down to that barrier, and they start to kind of trust each other, and they start loving one another, and that's what it's about, and that's what I thrive on, and that's what I love watching. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love winning basketball games, but watching guys build a relationship, and now all of a sudden in each other's weddings, and watching guys have success when they go on, and the other guys are caring for them and loving about it. That's what it's about, man. That's what's fun.
What's cool is all three of those, they all work together.
Mm-hmm.
And they do. And you talked about toughness with family and trust, and that's really cool. Just the way that all three of those work together, and you're able to flow this.
And again, it was something that I saw Coach Brandon, what they were doing over there, and I was like, what, these are, let's figure out three things that we believe in and three things we live by every day, and they just happen. Those three things are what we live by, and that's the way we try to do it. And it's not just basketball. It's not just the team and the program. It's how you handle yourself with your daily relationships with mom and dad. If the parents are divorced, and you might lean one way, how are you dealing with mom? Because you only got one mom or you only got one dad. How are you patching that relationship? How are you trusting that person?
You mentioned it before start recording. You do some things off the floor as well too with your team that probably centers around those core values as well too.
Yes.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, we do. I picked it up. Another thing we picked up from North Florida's coach. I heard him speak down at the KBC called the Family Series, and we as coaches do it. We don't do it every year because it kind of loses its luster, and guys are trying to go through the same thing. But we've done it once. We're doing it again this year, where basically you talk about your family. You talk about your highlight, you talk about your hero, you talk about your heartbreak, and then you talk about your house, your home life. And I do it, our whole staff does it, and it gets very emotional. And, vulnerability, when you're vulnerable, it's tough. And especially for young men, for kids, boys, it's not easy for me, but we do it. And you can just see, because we do it in the locker room, and it stays in the locker room, and the guys start crying, and some guys have been through a lot more heartache than others. I've had guys in my program that I'm 41 years old, and they've seen more in 15, 16 years, and gone through more in 15, 16 years than I had to, and it's very emotional, and you just see the guys when they open up to each other, and you start to see, man, he's been through a little rougher than I have, and he's got it a little bit tougher than I do. I need to have his back a little bit more. and I get emotional talking about it because, I've gone through some things in my life where those guys have had my back, and I was emotional, and I'm crying, and the guys are crying, and that's just, and it's something that we tried, and it's very powerful. And to hear guys tell stories, and then you hear a guy that hasn't had any heartache sitting there after 3 or 4 guys go, and they go, you know what, I really don't have a lot of heartache, but my heartache is I feel for my guy right there because of what he's gone through, and it's very emotional, and it's very powerful to do, and I'm thankful that we picked it up, and it's really made a big difference in our program, and I think not only just in our program but in our kids' personal lives, and also in my personal life. I went through the death of my father just recently, and talking about it to my guys and getting it out there and letting them know. It was very helpful, in my healing process of it, and it's not all you talk about your hero. It's so cool to hear people talk about different people in their lives, and just to hear guys pour their hearts out. And some guys do it better than others, and some guys hold back a little bit, but you kind of see as they speak, they get a little bit more. And there again, it all goes back to that relationship and that bond that guys put together.
So you do that about once?
We do it once every couple years, once every 3-4 years. We try to let it, and we've done follow-ups where we'll do something where instead of doing all of them, we just kind of break it down for maybe 1 or 2 of the things for the older guys, and then the new guys kind of talk more about it.
Very cool. That's awesome. You talked about past players. You've talked about relationships. I know you have a couple right now who are excelling at a high level in multiple sports. What's been the difference with them? Maybe that you can see, obviously, talent. But what's kind of pushed them, and what's given them the success? What tools have they gotten?
Definitely. Obviously, God-given ability. That's a huge thing, and we know that. But I think the big thing is just the adversity that they've gone through in their own lives. Obviously, we talk about Adam and Sean, Adam Kunkel and Sean McNeil. They've been through some adversity in life. Their personal lives, they've gone through some real heartache, and 2 totally different paths to where they're at now. But just I think going through that in their life has really, really put them in a situation where they're able to handle this and be able to have success and have that toughness. Because to play at that level and to play at a high level like they are, you've got to be tough. But we actually talked about a young man today, Dante Hendricks. I think Dante. The way he attacks life and the way he is about things, there's a reason why he's first team all-conference and why he's an academic all-conference type guy where he's at Indiana State for football. But he's been through some adversity. I mentioned it a minute before. He breaks his wrist in his junior year, and it's amazing because he and his dad and I have a good relationship. And I thought for sure his senior year, because football was a sport, and we all know that. I mean, the kid's on ESPN making catches. I didn't know if he was going to play basketball his senior year. The year that that's 2017 when we won it, and I knew how important he was to our program, and I never pressured him. I never said a word to him, and the buzz, the rumors were going out. Oh, he's not going to play, and I didn't touch it. And springtime came around, and Dante comes to me and says, "Coach, don't worry. I love being an athlete. I love playing basketball. I'm playing hoop." But going through adversity for those guys, and I can keep going with other guys. I mean, Braden Runyon, he's a kid that, he went to Walter State for community college for baseball, and he just accepted a full scholarship to go play third base for Texas Tech. Texas Tech just put a third baseman in the draft just the last few years. So those guys obviously having a special ability. But they've been through it, and I think another thing that helps with that is they're just good guys, man. Like when you hang out with them, they don't come off as being I'm better than you. They come off as just guys, just like sitting around having a conversation, man. It's so cool to because what I like to do is, especially when I'm around them, if I'm not talking to them, I like to stand back and observe how they interact with others and how they talk to others. When I went down and watched Sean down at West Virginia after the game, I'm watching him. He's giving us a tour, but I'm watching him, and he's signing autographs, and he's taking pictures, and he's not standoffish. He comes across just as a normal guy, and I think that's a big key for why they have success, because they're very humble human beings.
That speaks a lot to you too. You're teaching them those soft skills every day, and the small things you're doing. you're setting them up for success later. Because we talk about this with Coach Brandon. We talk about this all the time. It's 100% guarantee your career is going to end at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what are you getting from the game? And even though all of your kids aren't playing at a high level now, they're all set for life. I mean, that speaks a lot to this.
And that's a, you know, you mentioned, you said something earlier about when we were cleaning the bit, leaving something better than you found it.
Right.
That's something that I was taught by my parents, and I was taught by the coaches that I've played for and coached with. Whatever it is, leave it better than you found it. And whether it's a relationship with a kid, a program, you know, a job, leave it better than you found it. Put your mark on it. Put a positive spin on it. Figure out a way to make it better. You know, you may not improve it, you know, a great deal, but figure out a way to leave your mark on it. Whatever your role is in that situation, figure out a way to make it better. And I think that mindset has really helped us have success, and that's why the wins have come, is because of all that mindset of how can I help you? How can I help you? Being that selfless type of guy, helping others, and that's where we're trying to get now in our program with the group this year.
You know, you said you're 41 now?
Yeah.
41. You know, when you coach high school kids, they're always the same age every year. They say the same, and every year you get a little bit older, and it's a changing world. It's a changing, right. It's a changing world, right?
Absolutely.
How do you? And you said, I know you mentioned social media before. Is there anything that you do? You know, as time has went on, have you changed, I guess, how you try to connect with some of the kids, given the changing world that's going on? I know being a teacher helps as well too.
Yep.
Is there anything, you know, has your philosophy changed with that? I guess in a way is what I'm asking.
Right. That's a good question. I try to just be myself. Something that I got from my dad. You know, I've never met a stranger, and something that I've got from my mom is I love everybody and I try to help people. You know, you may not like me, but I'm gonna try to help you. You might be my enemy, but on the court, but I'm still going to try to help you out. And I think that has really helped me to stay in touch with everything. I think the biggest thing though is being in the classroom. I absolutely love being in the classroom. You know, as a teacher, sometimes you hate the everyday grind of lesson plans and teaching, but it's that everyday interaction. You know, people ask me all the time, are you going into administration? I'll be honest with you, I don't want to do anything with administration because I love the interaction of every day, learning what makes kids tick. You know, kids are changing every year, and I love the saying that Frank Martin said, you know, the kids aren't really changing, it's the expectations, the standard that we as adults are holding these kids to, and we're lowering those standards. And I try to get the kids to understand that there's a way to treat people, there's a way to act, and finding what makes them tick, because kids are different now and the way they look at things are different, and technology has changed that. And if you as an adult continue to fight saying, well, no, I'm old school, I still have my old school beliefs and my old school core values, but I also have to understand that these kids aren't brought up the same way I was brought up, and they weren't brought up the same way that they were brought up 10 years ago. You know, they're different, and you have to understand that. And the biggest way I think you do that is you have to understand that social media has changed everything about the way kids look at different things. You know, I joke with my kids always ask me in class, Coach, who's the greatest player to ever play the game of basketball, LeBron or Michael? That's always that's a question I get every year. And I tell the kids, I say, you guys are so spoiled because when I was growing up, we only got to see games on Saturdays or Sundays. And usually it was the Celtics, Lakers, Bulls, Pistons. You know, so that you guys get to see games on your phone, games here. So you guys are seeing all this. I said, you know, and I'm like, y'all are comparing two different guys. I said, compare LeBron to Magic, not LeBron to Michael. You know, LeBron plays like Magic. And the kids don't really get it because it's all about, well, he's got 6 rings. Well, he's 6'8" and he can do this. And I'm like, you guys are so spoiled because of social media and because of the fact that you read about this stuff every single day. Can you imagine if Michael Jordan would have had social media back in the day? I mean, think about that. And if you don't understand that kids see this stuff and the things that they're seeing every day on YouTube and Twitter and Snapchat and these different things that they're using, you as an adult are being left behind. You can't continue to say, well, I don't believe in that stuff. You better figure out how to understand why the kids are watching it. And then when you do that, you try to figure out, okay, how can I mold their mind around what they're seeing and try to fit my old school core values and my beliefs into what they're doing. Because that's the obstacle now as adults. And I think that's the biggest thing about trying to continue to relate is be myself, but also understand that these kids are seeing a lot. I mean, I got little ones at home, and some of the stuff they come to me and they say, "Daddy, what's this?" And I'm like, "Oh man, you're already seeing that." So it's ever changing.
Is there anything, kind of different topic here, but is coach anything that you do to improve yourself that you feel like during the off season, to read podcasts, anything that you do?
I absolutely love podcasts. It's my wife jokes with me. She's like, "Man, you take 2 hours to cut the grass," and I try to take 2 hours because I try to get all the podcasts in again because that's that me time that But podcasts, I love any chance I get to go see coaches practice or coaches working guys out or speak at coaching clinics. Man, I love that stuff. I absolutely, I admire the guys, that get to do stuff like what you guys are doing. I think that is so cool because there's so much knowledge out there, and you hear so many different ways of things put. We're all kind of saying the same stuff, but it's different ways, and finding different ways to relate it to the kids is so cool. The amount of podcasts that are out there now, I don't read as much as I should. My mother's a retired English teacher, and she is probably not happy with that, and then I yell at my kids because they don't read enough. But I don't read enough unless it's something that really interests me. Now, I love reading books. A book that pops right into my mind right now is The Energy Bus by John Gordon. I mean, I read that and it changed my life. Instead of have to, you got to get to, and don't be an energy vampire, be an energy giver, and have that energy, that positive energy about you every day. And we all have our rough days, but being able to get through it, books like that, and I try to read leadership books, and Blackberry Moment by my man Ernie Johnson. If you haven't read that book, that book will change your mind as well. And I got to admit, my wife, she's a reader, and she's rubbed off on me, and she's recommended some readings, and that's really helped me. But any type of coaching clinic I can go to, I had the opportunity to serve as the KABC president, so I got to travel and go to the conferences and talk about just an eye-opening experience and getting to be around other coaches from other states and building relationships. Got relationships with guys from New Hampshire and Vermont and up in places like Boston. It's so cool, man, and just picking their brain and seeing how they handle things and talking to them has been really, really beneficial to me personally and professionally.
And that's toughness on its own. It's just the wanting to grow. And
yeah.
That sort of thing. You got anything else?
What podcast you listen to? What's your favorite one?
I like the immersion, basketball immersion one. It's pretty good. Who else? The ones that I got stuck on, man. I loved when Alan Stein and
Hamlin?
Yes, when they got going on them, man. I was like ate up with that. I'd get mad if they didn't have the new one up and going. Alan Stein's a guy that I really raise your game. Yeah. Alan Stein's a guy that I started reading about early on. I actually remember watching some of his training videos when he had at Montrose Christian when he had Kevin Durant. And I started kind of following him, and he actually spoke. Chad Sims had him down at Pendleton County one time, and he came and spoke, and I went down and listened to him, and he was really good. And he's broke off now, and from being a strength coach at DeMatha, now all of a sudden he's doing national speaking arrangements. Yeah, it's kind of cool to see, and I think that also shows that I'm getting a little bit older and I'm growing a little bit because guys that I started watching and following now, they're national guys that are talking. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any certain role models that I guess maybe after a tough loss, you're facing adversity yourself, and you reach out to for some guidance or some advice?
My old college coach, his name's Chris Viscuso. He's actually an assistant coach at a Division III school now, Penn State Barron up in Erie, Pennsylvania. He when I went in as a freshman, I was a know-it-all guy, had all the answers. I was tough and hard-nosed, but had no idea how to play. And thought that I had all the answers and would try to wave him off. And he really, in so many words, molded me, really grabbed me, by the throat almost at times. and he and I built a great relationship. And I played 4 years down there, and Coach Riley, the head coach, was phenomenal as well, and we got a great relationship. But I eventually was a GA. I went back and was a graduate assistant with him, and Coach Scuso and I, we call him Scoots, but he and I, we immediately started building a relationship, and he was actually the best man at my wedding, and he and I still speak every day. And when I'm feeling down, or if I'm feeling almost sorry for myself, I call him. He tells me what I need to hear, not what I want to hear. And he understands. He's sympathetic, but he also is old school blue collar type of guy that played small college basketball and knows how to motivate. I mean, you want to talk about a motivator? This guy's phenomenal, and I'll call him and lean on him a little bit. He's been through a lot in his life where he's not much older than me. He's about 9 years older than I, but he's the guy that I kind of lean on. And then the other person is my mother. I've never met a tougher person in the world, and she's. If you say Linda Sullivan's name around Northern Kentucky, people either have had her in class. She taught 8th grade English at Holmes for and then was an administrator down there. She was in education for 32 years. But she's a person that I lean on, and even when we lost my pop, everybody kept asking, "How's Mom doing? How's Mom doing?" And she was fine, man. It was me and my brothers, the ones that basically leaned on my mom. So she's taught me she's taught me toughness. She's taught me how to treat people and how to serve people, and even today she bounces around, and she spoils my kids. But she's a person that when I have a big decision, she's usually the person that I kind of will call and Mom, what do you think? And she'll and I'm not afraid. I'm not ashamed to say that I'm a mama's boy. It's just what it is. But she's another person that those two people in my life. They set me straight when I need to be set straight, and they're also my biggest fans.
Good. That's all I got. We appreciate you
Awesome.
the journey, and
Absolutely, man.
a long way. But still learning.
Absolutely, love what you guys are doing, man. It's great stuff. I can't wait to see who else you get, and I want to be able to learn from what they're talking about. And I appreciate what you guys are doing. I think I think more people need to do this stuff, and learning leadership and toughness, and trying to better ourselves. Not just saying, well, I've hit this plateau or I've got to this peak, and how can I, because once you get to a certain point, it's how do I help others, and how do I help this guy get to this level or this guy get to this level, and you start getting even more and more selfless when you get to that level. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely.
It's a busy time of year.
All good, man.
So, good luck.
Definitely appreciate it, man. Absolutely appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Yep.